We need some nice sound from Mridanga. Are you able to play Mridanga, Prabhu? Nice and I think he's busy. So we'll begin kirtan now. On page 4 of the songbook, there will be the pranam prayers for pranati. So we can make sure everyone has one of those. Can you get one for everyone, Mataji? Yeah. And also this kind gentleman. Okay, here we go. It'll be a call and response. So we just absorb ourselves in the sound of the mantras in a call and response way. Okay, here we go. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Everyone. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pashatya Deshatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Chaitanya
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare,
Wait, let me.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Okay, so this is kirtan. We try to come together to glorify the names of Krishna. My time. So thank you everybody for participating. Now we'll be having a lecture. So please do stay tuned. After the lecture, there'll be more events. So if you do need to leave, then just let somebody know. We'll make sure you get some prasadam. That's a wonderful meal that you can make spiritual advancement. You taste that food. So, okay. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, thank you. Om Gyatmandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Dhanvat Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Stapadam Yenu Bhuttale Swayam Rupakaramaya Vadantikam Maum Vishnu Padak Dushabhisa Bhuttale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nivishesha Shunyavari Pashatara Shatarine Vanchakapa Tubhasa Kripa Sinivevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Go Bhaktabanda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yes, so welcome everybody to our Sunday program. And I believe we have two personalities here who are visiting us the very first time, right? This is Ruby and her good husband. What's your good name? Oh, it's your second time and you don't belong together. Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, but this is quite funny. I met Ruby the other day on a walk and we bumped into each other and she asked me all these questions. So I invited her to come here and now she's here. Hare Krishna. Yes, special welcome to you. Yes. Anybody else who is new? Also first time? Wow, amazing. So then another special welcome to you. What's your good name? Tera. Okay, good. Wonderful. We are always happy when people show some interest in our lifestyle and philosophy and all that. So yes, I am like a visiting traveling preacher, you could say. Maybe I just introduce myself very briefly. So my name is Devaki Devi Dasi, and I am originally from Germany, but I never lived there as a devotee. I actually met Krishna consciousness in Australia, traveling the world looking for a higher purpose to life. And that was in 1985. So, and since then, I am full-time busy in this mission of spreading this Vedic knowledge and this chanting of the Maha Mantra. And I have lived in different parts of the world. I spent quite some time in Australia. They are getting some basic training in all our different aspects of spiritual practice. And then I was also involved in pioneering the first more organized temple in the former Soviet Union in Latvia, very small country, the Baltics. It's opposite Sweden, Finland, there, this corner. So that was a very adventurous time. It was just when the communist system fell apart. So it was real pioneer work there. And since 1999, I'm basically, yes, you could say I'm living out of a suitcase. I'm constantly traveling, preaching, giving seminars, lectures, retreats. And I basically spend 5 months per year visiting our temples in India and Bangladesh. And then the rest of the year, I'm in the Western world, all around Europe, also Eastern Europe. Like before the war started, I spent a lot of time in Ukraine also. But I also still go to Australia, New Zealand, sometimes to US, Canada, South Africa, so many places. Yes. So today I would like to discuss one topic with you all, which I believe is relevant for every one of us, no matter whether we are here the very first time or maybe already coming for 30 years, whatever it may be. That's the topic of envy. Envy, the main obstruction in our relationships. That's relevant to all of us, isn't it? Yes. Yes, envy is very subtle. And it is so subtle that we often even don't identify it. And yes, very often we think that everybody else around us is envious, but of course not me. I don't have that envy, because we know it's a rather ugly quality, and we like to keep us in this illusion that we don't have this. So let us first of all understand how envy comes about. So envy comes as soon as we strive for sense gratification. As soon as sense enjoyment is our goal, immediately there will be, please everybody switch off your mobile phone. Yes, as soon as we strive for sense enjoyment, envy and competition will enter. That we will have this feeling, oh, this person may have something which we don't have, and we get envious. But even if, even towards inferiors or people, who don't have something which we have, even there also envy manifests. I like to understand envy as a certain state of heart. It's a certain consciousness, certain state of heart, which comes out in all our relationships, towards seniors, towards equals, towards less experienced persons. We will use in a subtle way all these relationships to establish our superiority. Yes, we will discover this in a minute. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is part of the old ancient Vedic literatures, there is one verse where Srila Prabhupada, in the word-for-word translation, he says, Kalaha, meaning the envious, and then he puts in brackets, almost everyone. Right? You get the point? Almost everyone. So that may very well mean that it includes us also, if it's almost everyone. Because yes, this is the point. We are here in this material world because we do want to enjoy life. And as we said, as soon as we strive to enjoy our senses, envy comes in. So therefore, almost everyone. Otherwise, we would not be here, actually, plainly said. So today I would like to read with you one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is 4th Canto, 8th chapter, verse number 34. And I would like to ask you to be very attentive, because afterwards I would like to collect with all of you these different aspects, how envy and non-envy manifests towards seniors, equals, and juniors. Right. So let me just chant the Sanskrit verse once, just one time through. Gunadikan mudam lipset anukosham gunadamat maitrim samanat anvichen natapher abhibhuyate. So the translation is as follows. Every man or woman, not man meaning the genders, but every human being, every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. So that is already an interesting statement, that if we just learn to act in a non-envious way, we will not be affected by the miseries of being in this material world. So that sounds pretty promising. So let us read the purport, the explanation which Srila Prabhupada is giving us. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. Here we have the statement again, that this envious behavior is the root cause of all our suffering. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate towards him just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's own activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. So very often the last sentence in Prabhupada's purports, they're always summarizing the whole topic and one more time hit the nail on the head, so to speak. So yes, these important functions will make one happy within this material world. So one more time we hear the statement that if we just learn to act in a non-envious way, we can actually be happy in this material world, even here in Kansas City or wherever it may be, which may almost seem a little contradictory to what we usually say, because usually we try and present that life in this material world cannot be happy, right? So now we have to understand that in the spiritual world, Prabhupada describes this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because there is no desire for sense enjoyment. There, the residents of the spiritual world, they have a higher level of joy, a higher level of pleasure. To enjoy the senses seems to be a boring waste of time. So, and because there is no desire of sense gratification, actually, let me add why there is no desire for sense enjoyment, because they are the living entities, they are all focusing on giving pleasure to Krishna. Yes. And that gives them such a high level of bliss and joy that just enjoying the senses seems to be a boring waste of time. So to make all kinds of pleasurable arrangements for the Lord that he enjoys, that is actually our eternal constitutional position. That is actually what we should be doing. But here in the material world, we are a little like a fish out of water. We try to enjoy ourselves, but no matter how hard we try, sooner or later, we always get disappointed, frustrated. So in any case, in the spiritual world, there, all living beings are so absorbed in giving pleasure to the Lord that sense enjoyment doesn't exist. And therefore, there is no envy there. So now, going back to the statement that Prabhupada makes, that one can be happy in this material world if we are acting in a non-envious way, in one sense, we can actually say, if we are non-envious, then we are not part of this material world. We are already in the spiritual world, even though physically we are still here, but within our minds, we are simply absorbed in giving pleasure to the Lord in all different ways. And therefore, there is no striving for sense gratification, and therefore, there's also no envy in our hearts. And that's why we can be already happy, even here, now, and then, And in another interesting purport, Prabhupada even says, in one sense, there is actually no material world. There's only forgetfulness of Krishna. And Prabhupada says, of those persons who are in forgetfulness of Krishna, from them it is to be said that they are living in the material world. Right? So very nicely phrased that those people who forget, there's only being conscious of Krishna or being in forgetfulness of Krishna. And those who are fully conscious of the Lord, serving him, glorifying him, getting pleasure in hearing about his glories, from them it is to be said they live in the spiritual world already. And from those living entities who are in forgetfulness of the Lord, from them we can say they live in the material world, right? Just as a little introduction. So now let us turn to our topic of envy. And let us try to remember what the envious and non-envious relationship towards seniors, equals, and juniors manifest, what they look like. And one thing I'd like to mention before we start, this whole discussion is meant to discover the envy in our hearts, not in other people's hearts. Because especially when we talk about how envy manifests towards less qualified, less experienced persons, very easily our contaminated mind will say, oh, just see, I always knew, my senior is actually envious. And that's why he treats me exactly like this. Just see, I always knew it. So we don't want to fall into that trap, because what does it indicate? If we use this discussion to discover the envy in other people's hearts, what does it indicate? That we are envious, exactly. So let us not allow our envy to manifest in such a gross and blunt way, right? Yeah, so it's meant to look within our own hearts and discover that, oh yes, maybe I do act like this. And I mean, I have discussed this topic in other communities before. And sometimes people share with me, oh my God, that was a real heart surgery. I realize that's me. I've got it all. You know, I'm envious towards seniors, equals, and juniors. My God, I never even knew before. So you better be ready. Yes. So envious behavior towards seniors. Or let us remember, what did Prabhupada say? Would you like to join us? Please do so. Or you have to go upstairs. Okay, good. No problem. What did Prabhupada say? Let us remember, how do we receive a senior when we are not envious? Anybody remembers? What did Prabhupada say? We are jolly. We are jolly to receive him. So that's when we are non-envious. So, in other words, when we are envious, we are not so jolly to receive him, right? We think, oh no, not this guy is here. Okay. And then we may ask him, Haribol Prabhu, how long are you staying? 3 days. Okay, fine. And we think in our hearts, oh, thank God he's only staying for 3 days. And then he's leaving again. And then I have the show to myself again. Thank God. So what else do we do when we are envious and we receive or we meet a more experienced person? What do we like to do? What do you think? Yes, exactly. We find fault. We criticize behind his back. We talk bad about him. Oh, we're pretty good at that, right? And sometimes it happens rather subtle, in subtle ways. Let us imagine a traveling preacher comes and he gives a lecture, and then a friend of ours says, oh, that was a nice class, wasn't it? And then we say, yeah, it was all right, but actually he didn't quote so many verses from the scriptures. It was not so shastric, you know. So even if it is true, interestingly, even if it is true, just the fact that we feel this urge to make that statement actually shows that we are envious. And we may not even be conscious of this. We may be thinking, well, I'm just sharing with my friend my opinion, my experience. You know, can't I say my opinion? Can't I speak the truth? You know, freedom of speech, what's this? Can't I say what I experience? But no, you know, it's just the fact that we want to make this negative statement, even if it's true. It actually, if we really reflect and look within our heart, we have to detect that there is some envy there. And that's why we try to minimize that person's importance, and we make some negative comment just to reduce him a little bit, right? So what else do we do? How else do we try and establish our superior position, basically? This is what we are doing. What else do we do with a senior when we are envious? What do we do? Yes? We glorify ourselves. Yes, this can very well be. We try and impress him, talk about ourselves. Actually, yeah, this is a very common thing these days. We will discover when we talk about the non-envious behavior that we are actually meant to inquire from a senior and more experienced person. But these days, everybody loves to talk about themselves. You ever notice that? People love to talk about themselves rather than inquiring. They simply, like to talk about themselves and boast what they've all been doing and all that, you know. But yeah, we do something else also. What else do we do? Yes. Yeah, compete in a subtle way, although that manifests more amongst equals. But no, we ignore him, right? When a senior person comes, we simply don't give him any attention if we are envious. We do as if he is nobody, not worth giving any attention to. We simply ignore him, right? Not even saying, hello, how are you, Hare Krishna, or anything. But we just walk past him, look the other way, do as if he is nobody, nothing, right? Yeah, so these are the basic ways how we deal with people, with a senior, more experienced person, when we are envious. We criticize, we are not so happy to see him, and we ignore him. Actually, in Manu Samhita, which is one of our Vedic scriptures, it even says that if we are not pleased by meeting a devotee, it means it is actually an offense. Yes. So I think we all probably have people in our lives where we are not so happy to see them and where we rather look the other way and, oh no, not that person. I don't want to talk to this person now. And we quickly, you know, take a turn and walk in a different direction. And we may very well think, oh, it's him, you know, or her. It's their problem, but actually, no, it's our problem, you know. If we were pure devotees, we, you know, a pure devotee is equal to everyone. A pure devotee is eager to connect with everyone, to uplift them. So even if that person is a little, you know, inimical towards ourselves, but still a pure devotee is beyond that, above that, and still connects with that person in an uplifting way, you know. Okay, so let us move on to the non-envious behavior towards more experienced persons. So we heard already, the first one is how do we receive him? Jolly, yes, we are jolly to receive him. That's right. And how else do we associate with a person who is more experienced? We glorify them. What else? We serve them and inquire. Exactly. In Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi Panipatena, Pariprashnena Sevaya. So Pariprashna means inquiry, and Sevaya means rendering service. So this is how we are not only meant to associate with Guru, but actually with any more qualified person. That we offer humble service and we inquire in a meaningful, we inquire in a meaningful way, not just small talk questions or something, but in a more deeper way, how we actually can make spiritual advancement. That's how we squeeze some nectar out of this more experienced person. And that's how we take advantage of their association. But as I mentioned, these days people like to talk about themselves. So one actually has to be humble to offer service and to inquire, And when that humility is not there, then we rather talk about ourselves. And interestingly, these two aspects of rendering service and inquiry, they actually enhance each other. So the more we humbly inquire, the more we feel inspired to serve. And the more we humbly serve, the more we feel inspired to inquire. So they enhance each other. So they're very important elements of spiritual practice. That's how we associate with persons who are more experienced. So now let us move on to associating with juniors, with less experienced persons. So what is the envious behavior towards less experienced persons? Even though, as I mentioned, usually we use this word envious, that we are envious of a person who has something which we don't have. But towards less experienced persons, it's actually not like that they have something which we don't have. But nevertheless, understanding that envy is a certain state of heart, it does come out in all relationships, even towards less experienced persons, So how does this envy manifest towards less experienced persons? Who can remember what Prabhupada said in the purport? How do we treat less experienced persons when we are envious? We deride them, exactly. So we push them down. We are dealing with them in a condescending way, right? Talking down on them. Oh, you are nobody and I am so great. So basically, we use this relationship to once again establish that we are superior, even though we know it already that we are superior, but now we use that relationship to enjoy this superiority. It's kind of a subtle and a little bit of a perverted kind of enjoyment, right? So what else do we do? How else do we treat less experienced persons when we have some envy in our heart? What do we do? There's a few more things. Yes? Very true. Yes. We speak harshly. In fact, when we constantly and very harshly chastise and correct a person all the time, and as I mentioned, we don't want to think now or just see my authority is always treating me like this. He must be envious. No, when we find this tendency in our hearts that we like to, pick on people and always get on their case and chastise them overly harshly, so that may very well be an indication that there's some envy there. In fact, this can even manifest towards children also, I have observed this when I travel, on airports or wherever, or sometimes parents scream at their little kids and really, chastise them heavily, even though they may be at an age where they don't even understand what is going on. So this comes out when people's hearts are full of anger and frustration and envy, and then they ventilate this envy and frustration and anger on their children, and they cop it, basically. Yes. So, yeah, we have to be very careful that we don't treat, less experienced persons like that. Yeah, or what else do we do when we are envious and when we are dealing with less experienced people? We avoid them in a sense that we say, you are nothing, I'm so important, I've got no time for you, I'm so busy, and we are impatient with them, I can't work with you, you're just too unqualified or something, right? Yes. Also, when we make fun out of people, we have a good laugh at their expense. This is also a way of putting a person down, by making fun of him in public. Other people hear it and he looks like a fool and all this, Yes. Yes. Also, in that regard, we can discover this mentality that, yes, we want to help and uplift a less experienced person, but definitely not higher than I am. Right? Yes? That, yes, I want you to be successful, but not more successful than I am. So very clearly, I'm up here and you are down there, and you will always stay down there. This is also a mentality when we are envious. Actually, to make somebody more successful than we are, this really requires a non-envious heart. To really want somebody to become more glorious, more successful than we are. That we can only truly wish for a person when we are non-envious. Otherwise, we will always try to keep him just that little bit down below us, And also we can observe that, when we delegate a task to another person, that often we are not so good at that. And we have this mentality of either I do it or you do it. And if you do it, okay, good luck, you do it. But actually, good delegation means that we follow up, that we ask, especially when we are more experienced, that we ask, so how are you doing? Do you need some more money, some helpers, some advice, some good ideas? How are you going? But very often we don't do this follow-up. And it may almost seem like in our hearts we hope that he will not be as successful as if we would do it. Right? And we definitely don't give him any good tips or anything. Yes. So, yeah, this is sad, but we can observe these things. And then when the other person is failing in his task, then we say, just see, I knew you can't do it. Just see, I should have done it myself, Yes. So that is definitely envy, And we may not even be aware of it. We may not be able to identify it, Also, when we ignore a person's good abilities for a long time, like initially when a person comes new to Krishna consciousness, so it is recommended that he should do some humble service and not immediately only use his material qualifications, but he should first learn to be humble. But if for a long time we ignore a person's abilities, this may very well also indicate that we are a little envious there, and we want to make sure he remains lower than we are, like that. Yes. So now the non-envious behavior towards less experienced persons. The non-envious one, how does that manifest? What did Prabhupada say? Yes, we are compassionate towards him. We reach out to him affectionately. We want to raise him, uplift him, help him to come up and develop himself or herself, right? That is non-envious. And as I mentioned, to actually want somebody to be more successful, more glorious than we are, that really requires non-envy. Yes, it really does. And our dear Srila Prabhupada, I guess, was a perfect example of being 1,000% non-envious. Non-envious person can connect with each and every person, no matter who he or she may be, and act for their ultimate good, for their upliftment. Prabhupada knew how to connect with a little child, with a hippie, with a drunkard, with a scientist, with a religious priest, or with anybody. He knew exactly how to connect with them and how to act with them, or how to act towards them, so they would make one little step closer towards Krishna, And sometimes Prabhupada was very heavily chastising people, very heavily. But because his chastisement came from a non-envious heart, people could sense that. And as a rule, they did not get offended because they could feel that Prabhupada wanted their very best, that he acted as their true well-wishing friend. They could sense that. And that's why Prabhupada could speak so heavily. Whereas we cannot so easily imitate Prabhupada, because when we chastise a person heavily, then very easily there is some envy actually mixed into our words, So we have to be very careful. In fact, it is even a rule of Vaishnava etiquette that one actually should not correct a person unless one is non-envious. Wow. But then remembering in the beginning how Prabhupada says almost everyone is envious, so that means nobody can correct anybody, right? Well, we actually should only correct a person if it is our service. If we are in a managerial position, or we serve as that person's guide and mentor, or, when we have some, when it is our service, only then we should correct others. And even though we may not be non-envious, but one thing we can say, and I'm sure we all had that experience, when we are corrected by somebody, or when we correct somebody with some huffy, envious, false ego mood, right? Have we had that experience, being corrected like that, or correcting others like that? Afterwards, we have a pretty bad feeling there inside, right? A pretty ugly feeling. So this is actually the contaminating effect of the false ego. Yes. So whenever we find ourselves in a situation where we get agitated and, we see a person doing something wrong and we can hardly control ourselves, we have to go up to this person right now and correct him and tell him that he should not do this. Whenever we feel like that, we should definitely not correct in that mood. Because otherwise, our correction, even though it may be perfect in itself, will actually contaminate that other person's heart. Because it is not given in a pure consciousness. It is mixed with false ego, with envy. By the way, false ego, envy, they are very good friends. They always like to move around together. Yes, so we should not correct in this huffy and agitated mood, but we should just wait until we cool down. Even if it means we have to sleep it over and wait for the next day. Usually just to sleep one night does wonders. The next morning, the world often looks already differently, you know. So it's a very good way of just cooling down, digesting things, just to sleep it over for one night. So, and then when we are really cool down, you know, then we can carefully correct a person. And I also like to advise that we have this prayerful 2 minutes before we correct a person, that we say, oh, please, Krishna, help me to bring this correction across as a dear, most well-wishing friend, wanting the very best for that person, being his true servant. You know, if we have that prayerful mood, then Krishna allows us to at least be non-envious for these 2 minutes when we offer the correction. Yeah, it's quite practical. It works. And yeah, I apply these things in my own life, even though I'm also not non-envious. I'm working on it. But for most of us, it's a lifetime project. So yes, that's how we should give correction, you know, in a non-envious way and not in a huffy, agitated, false ego mood that, oh, how can you, and don't you know, and blah, you know. Yes. Yeah, so let us move on to the last kind of relationship, the envious behavior towards equals. When we are envious, how do we treat our equals? Those who have a similar influence, similar capabilities. How do we treat them? What did Prabhupada say in the purport? Anybody remembers? Nobody remembers. You looked it up somewhere. You took some notes, did you? Good. Yes, we are proud of our own activities. In other words, we chant our own glories. Right? We can imagine 2 traveling preachers are meeting. And then one says to the other, oh, in the mood of sharing, I'm just sharing with my friend. But then one says to the other, oh, Prabhu, guess what? I was at the London Rath Yatra and I was leading the kirtan. You want to have a look here? YouTube. You want to have a look? I'll send you the link. You can watch it, me leading the kirtan on the Rath Yatra festival in London. And then there was a big park and a big tent, and I was giving the lecture. Oh, it was so exciting. Thousands of people listened. You want to see here, YouTube, some photos, this, that, you know. So like that, we go on and on and on, what we've all been doing. So, and then finally we say, and what about you, Prabhu? What did you do? And by then the other person is all impressed. Wow, you are so great. I'm just nobody and nothing. I haven't done anything worthwhile even talking about. Right? So behind the envious mood between equals, there is this mood that yes, we are equals, but actually I'm a little superior. And then we want to make it clear that we are a little superior. So that's how the competition enters, right? That amongst two equals who are envious, there is competition. Who is just that little bit more superior? Even though, of course, we are equals, yes, but I'm a little more superior, like that. Yes, that's basically what goes on amongst equals. And again, we may not even identify it. We may think, well, I'm just sharing with my friend, telling him what I've all been doing. What's wrong with that? You know? But there is this subtle envious vibe there, you know, that competitiveness. And yeah, and that again, it actually contaminates the atmosphere and the relationship. Right? So now, non-envious behavior towards equals. What does that look like? What did Prabhupada say? Anybody remembers? What did Prabhupada say? Huh? They make friendship. So now to some extent we can say, well, friendship can also be there with seniors, friendship can also be there with juniors, but friendship amongst equals who are non-envious, it is a very special kind of friendship, a very confidential and intimate friendship. In fact, there is also a certain kind of competition there. So what kind of competition is there amongst equals who are non-envious? How do they compete? Very true. They glorify each other. Actually, they don't only glorify each other, but they push each other forward. Actually, you are more qualified. I want to hear from you. No, you are more experienced. You please sing. You lead the kirtan. I want to join your singing. You know, so like that, they push each other forward because the Vaishnav humility makes us feel like I am actually less qualified. The other person is more qualified. That's the humility of a devotee. You know? Yes. So in that sense, there is also a kind of competition there that they push each other forward. And interestingly, that's exactly the mood in the spiritual world. Yes. There, Krishna, the gopis, the manjaris, actually the gopis, they feel more pleasure making arrangement for the others to give pleasure to Krishna, rather than being there with Krishna themselves, you know? So this is almost foreign for us, you know, that thought that it can be more pleasurable, let's say, when our guru comes, you know, we want to be close to Guru, we want to get his attention, but that it can be more satisfying to the heart to push somebody else close to him rather than ourselves, right? This is for most of us maybe still quite far and foreign, that thought, you know. But that's exactly the mood in the spiritual world. So if we want to go there one day, we have to cultivate that mood of pushing others forward and taking the back seat, feeling more joy, you know, to see others successful and giving pleasure to the Lord or the spiritual master, you know. Yes. So, and on this level of friendship, that they compete and push the other person forward, there is also actually this confidential inquiry and mood of service towards each other, because both sides see themselves as juniors and see the other person as more elevated. So they want to perform a humble service to the other person. They want to inquire from the other person, right? And on that basis, this very intimate, confidential sharing takes place. You know, that one person says to the other, oh, you've been a brahmachari for 35 years. My God, what's your secret? Tell me. And then the other person says, and you've been distributing Prabhupada's books on the street for 35 years. So what's your secret? Tell me. Right? So, and on this level, there's very intimate sharing happening, which can only take place amongst equals. You know, you cannot share and inquire in such an intimate and confidential way towards a junior or a senior, but only towards equals this can take place, you know. So that's the special mood of friendship, which is there amongst equals. If we are non-envious, that's the price to pay, to be non-envious. So now my question to you, what is the most purifying relationship? With seniors, equals, or juniors? What do you think? Yes, everybody agrees? Somebody shakes his head there in the back. Okay. Well, we can say when we are very new to devotional life, we definitely learn a lot from seniors, but the most intense purification indeed takes place amongst equals, because that's where we have to show true color, who we are, whether we are humble servant or whether we want to be superior and enjoy and control, right? So towards seniors, not so easy to say, yes, or not so difficult to say, yes, I'm humble servant. And we hope that some of their glory splashes over to us, right? So yes, look at me, I'm always next to the senior person, next to Guru. I'm the confidential associate. So that brings a bit of attention and glory to ourselves, which we can enjoy in subtle ways. Comes to the surface, you know, where we really have to demonstrate that we are happy when that person is more successful, more glorious. This is not so easy. We cannot fake it for too long, right? Is it okay if we just continue for another 5 minutes? Or, yeah? Okay. Yeah, so the equal association is definitely the most purifying one. So we should try and consciously search, look out for equal association, especially when we cooperate with them in service, right? We may have had that experience, when we do perform some service in the kitchen, cooking, or on the altar. Two equally qualified cooks cooking lunch for Guru can be a challenge, because immediately that competitiveness enters. Who knows better what he likes and what he should eat and what he shouldn't eat, and. But if it's one expert, one helper, no problem. But two experts, it can become rather intense, Yeah, so that serving in the association of devotees, seniors equals juniors, this is highly purifying, putting ourselves into a service situation. Very purifying, yes. So coming to the Sunday program, every Sunday, that's a good start. But then sooner or later, it should bring us to the point where we want to serve under senior guidance with equally experienced people amongst juniors, that kind of service mood in association of devotees. Sooner or later, it will trigger our false ego, our envy. It will all come to the surface. So that's what we want. That's what we want. Yes. Okay, so since it is a very practical topic, let me see if we have any questions. Yes, Prabhu. We have a mic.
Hare Krishna. So when you were speaking about pure devotees and how they uplift others, I was wondering.
Say it again. We speak about what?
When we speak about pure devotees and how they uplift others, I was just wondering why does a pure devotee do this?
What?
He uplifts others.
He
uplifts others.
He uplifts others?
Yes.
Out of compassion. A pure devotee, his heart is full of compassion for all the conditioned souls who are in ignorance, who don't know about their relationship with Krishna, who are, creating their miseries, by doing things which they shouldn't do. So a pure devotee, he's got this quality of paradukkha dukhi. That means he for himself, he doesn't mind, suffering some inconvenience, no problem. But the only thing that gives him suffering is to see others suffer. That's the mood of a pure devotee. That's paradukkha dukhi, For himself, he doesn't mind tolerating any kind of inconvenience and trouble and misery. But what gives him real suffering is to see others suffer. So, and therefore he wants to alleviate other people's suffering and uplift them and, help them in their spiritual development. Prabhupada was the perfect example. That's why Prabhupada came to the West. He could have very nicely stayed in Vrindavan and performed his bhajan and be very comfortable there. But no, his compassion, that was driving him to come all the way to the Western world and preach, Yes. Yes, bro.
Hare Krishna. So I was wondering how we can discern who is an equal, and it seems like there might be categories like spiritual advancement versus maybe how much time they've been in the movement,
But then you mentioned like this cooking thing, like I may be in the movement for longer, but somebody who may have just come earlier may be better cook than me.
Yes.
So how do we?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, just quickly, how do we see who is senior, equal, junior? So the ultimate criteria is always a person's Krishna consciousness, a person's power to uplift others, but that we cannot so easily judge. So that's why we take the more external and, if you want, material criteria of how long we have been practicing this process of devotional life. When did we get initiated? First initiation, second initiation. Also, managerial position is always regarded as, treating him as superior. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives a very funny criteria. He says, he who is bigger in body, whose body is bigger, you better treat him as a superior. Yes, but then, in regards to equals, the difficulty of equal association is definitely also one's influence, one's power of influence, and one's capacities. So to share our influence with somebody similarly influential, this is a real challenge, And this can also include almost material abilities or qualifications, because then comes again this competitiveness and who knows better, And from the Bhagavatam, we have the famous story of Indra and Prithu Maharaj, when Prithu Maharaj wants to do the 100th war sacrifice, Until then, Indra had only 100 and Prithu Maharaj 99. So then there was peace. But as soon as Prithu Maharaj wanted to do the 100s, then Indra felt threatened. So, and then the whole battle started, So it's a good example. And we can actually say that so many conflicts in the world, inside our society and outside our society, actually comes about through the difficulty of associating with equals, with those who are equal in influence. We can very often observe this. Even in the animal kingdom, Vrindavan, the dog fights, monkey fights, right? They always fight over territory, So, that's the difficulty of equal association. Anything else? Yes, there in the back.
Hare Krishna. Should one identify with their envy? Just like you're not supposed to identify with the body. Should one, when we're feeling envious, should we step back and be like, that's actually not even, I'm not that. Like
it's not even what?
I'm not the envy. That is not my true nature. Like, can you step back into like more of an observation state?
Yes.
If you become aware of it in a moment.
Yeah. Well, we can say, I am not envious. I am not that envy, but I do have it. In the same way how we say, I am not the body, but I do have one. I'm driving one. So we don't identify with the envy, but we should identify the envy and realize this is in my heart. Even though, of course, I am spirit soul, and actually the soul, it has no influence on the soul itself, but it simply covers the soul. And we do have to do something about it. Actually, this whole topic of envy, I am discussing that in this book, Sheltering Relationships. I will be there on the book table later. And I am also giving 5 very practical steps how to uproot the envy. Or it's also in the topic of false ego. I'm also mentioning it there. Apart from the whole process of bhakti yoga, there is very particular 5 steps we should do, internal work, in order to uproot the envy. But I think to discuss this may take a little too long time. So if you want to know, please get the book. Then you will find out. Okay, shall we leave it at that maybe and continue with the program? Okay, so after the kirtan, after the singing, we will serve a feast, some nice food, and I will be available there on the book table if you want to connect more, if you have some questions, or if you want to have a look at the books, I can be available there. Okay, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Ali Ali Bol, Ali Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll go to the front of the room for Arti. Iva Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Arati Shobha.
Iba Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Arati Shobha.
Tavane Jagamana Loba. Daki Nitai Chan Bamigada. Nikate Advaita Shini Vasa Chatra Vasi Ache Gora Chan Rana Singh Samane. Arati Korindram Adi Deva Gam Nara Hari Hari Kori Chamara Dulaya Sanjaya Kunda Vasu Goshari Gaya Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Bhaje Karata Madhuramritanga Vaje Sala Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Bhaje Madhur Madhur Bhaje Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Rahu Koti Chandra Jini Vadana Ujvala Gala Deshe Bana Mala Prajala Mala Shiva Shukana Hara Bhakati Vinada Deke Godam Sampada Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pucharine Nirshusha Shunyavadi Rasyatyare Shatarini Gauravani Pucharine Nirshusha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Vedanta Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Jai Vishnu Pai Brahmangsa Parivrajakacharya Ashacharya Shruti Shisham Hasavangris. AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. You want to lead a string, Dave? Okay, go ahead.
That's okay. This is on page number 12. Namaste Narasimhaya. Allah Dala Dadai. Hiranyakashi Vakshaha. Shilatanga Nakalaya. Ito Nasimha Bharato Nasimo. Yato Yato Yami Tato Nasimha. Bahir Nasimho Nasimho. Narasimha Maru Sharanam Prapade. Avakara Kamalavara Naka Abhuta Shinga Lalita Hiranyakashipu Danu Bringa Keshavadrika Narahari Rupa Jayagari Shahari Jayagari Shahari. Lord Narasimhadev ki jai. Velar Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gaura ki jai.
Krishna. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Sunday festival tonight. I just got back from about 2 weeks break, so it's nice to see everybody. I was in Denver, and then there was a kirtan festival in Dallas called Sadhu Sangha. There's about 3,000 devotees gathered, and we're chanting the Maha Mantra, the holy name, throughout the weekend. It's a very special event. And so Devaki, Mother, we're very grateful for Mother Devaki to be here in town, special guest, and all of you, most of you heard the class tonight and have heard the classes online. Very special speaker. We're very grateful for her. Thank you so much for being here. And she's having 2 more classes here in Kansas City tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday, 7 p.m. here in the temple room. There'll also be broadcasts online on our YouTube channel, Rupanuga Vedic College, and Facebook page, Hare Krishna KC. So if you can't make it in person, then you can tune in there. Also, they're recorded too, so you can also go back and watch them. I also have Zoom too available as well. It's all posted on our Facebook and YouTube channel, right? Okay. So she also has some books available, so please take a look at them. There's 4 books there, 4 really nice books there. She spoke a little bit about them tonight in her class, so please take a look. And she said she'll be there after during this time. So please take a look and purchase some amazing books from Mother Devaki. And we don't have a sponsor. Okay. If you'd like to sponsor the feast tonight, it's only $251. You can give a partial amount as well. Good way to get the blessings of all the devotees here. By serving the devotees, then we get the mercy of Krishna. And Devaki was speaking about that yesterday at Bhaktivan in Lawrence, near Lawrence. So if you'd like to give something amount, you can approach me or one of the other residents here at the temple, and we can accept any form of payment, cash, check, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, etc. Thank you very much for coming. So now we'll line up for prasadam. Please take prasadam to your full satisfaction. We'll line up at the table there, and there'll be some seating on tables and chairs in the back, and also some seating on the floor here. Thank you very much for coming. Please come again. We're going to party next Sunday as well. Hare Krishna.